Using Continue Dev and Cloud Dev together in order to generate the best output. Hello friends, today I wanted to share with you a follow-up to my recent video. In my recent video, I shared a research that was done by the Aider team that showed that when you separate the code planning and the code generation and you give it to two separated LLMs, it yields better results. And I created a workflow that allows me to separate between the planning phase and the code creation, code editing phase in pretty streamlined manner, using on one hand Continue Dev, which is an open source AI coding assistant, and on the other side of the screen actually Cloud Dev. Now I will show you the research in a moment, but I just want to address the questions that comes up very often. Is it better than Cursor? Or is it better, is Cloud Dev better than Continue? Or just, comparison between AI coding assistants. So in my opinion, and obviously this can change all the time because companies are shipping features very fast and things are changing. I just saw a new AI coding assistant that seems promising, and I'm going to upload a video about probably in the upcoming days. But for now, what I like using Cloud Dev for generating the boilerplate and generating big chunks of code. But what I've been noticing is when the code becomes slightly bigger, let's say more than 5 files, more than a simple Chrome extension, whenever I make modifications or adjustments without validating the code, things start getting out of hand. And for this, when I try to refactor the code or edit the code, it's really important, at least for me, to try to understand what's going on in the code, especially since I'm not a developer. I'm an industrial engineer. I studied a few courses of software engineering, but I don't consider myself a developer. And for this, I combine Continue Dev, which allows me to make minor adjustments, minor tweaks in the code. And it is also very helpful because it allows me to highlight certain pieces of code and ask for explanations. Obviously, this can also be done via the chat, but I find Continue Dev and the whole UI of Continue Dev very convenient. So let me share with you, first of all, the research that was published by the Aider team, which I think is very interesting. So long story short, they're proposing separating code reasoning and editing. So basically you have an architect model, which is asked to describe how to solve the coding problem, and an editor model, which is given the architect solution and asked to produce specific code editing instructions. Now this is a table that shows all the combinations and the results that were generated by each combination. So these are the architect models. So for example, all these blue bars are when O1 preview was the architect model. All these green bars are when Claude Sonnet was the architect model, etc. And on this line, on the x-axis, you can see which model was combined, which model was the executing model, which did the code editing and code generation. So for example, in this case, here we have O1 as the architect and DeepSeek Coder as the code generating LLM. And as you can see here, obviously this is the score. The combination of O1 as the architect and DeepSeek Coder, or O1 Mini as the coder, yielded the best results. These bars where it's written baseline is when you use only one LLM. So when you use only O1, or in this instance, when you use only Claude Sonnet. So as you can see here, when you use Claude Sonnet and DeepSeek, it yields a better result. So this is why I moved in the last recent days since I saw this research. I tried combining two models. Now let me show you how I structure this in real life. So let me show you just an example of a project that I just did in order to test this out. So a simple habit tracker, you can probably build it very easily via the chat interface. You don't even need to use the coding assistance. Basically, you add a habit, you add how often you want to track it, and then you add it here, and then over here, I can mark as if I did the habit, executed the habit, and it increases the streak. Nothing fancy, but the goal of this video isn't really to show you this Chrome extension. It's more focused on my current structure of VS Code. So on this side, I have Cloud Dev, and here I have Continue Dev. By the way, you can download both of them for free from the extensions marketplace. So Cloud Dev, it's this icon, and Continue, it's this guy. Now, for setting up Cloud Dev, I'm assuming that you know, but if you don't, you come here, you just add the API of whichever provider you want to use. You add API keys, you can give custom instructions, although it's not necessary, but you can. And then you come here, you start a new task, you have the task history, and you can also search tasks by the oldest, newest, most expensive, most amount of token used, etc. And when it comes to Continue, I think Continue has a better interface. And let me show you, first of all, the documentation of Continue, because I wanted also to show you a few features that are not straightforward that Continue has. Now, this is the documentation. Basically, Continue offers chatting. So first of all, you can chat with the LLM, and I added O1 Preview now as my LLM provider, but you can change your LLM, so you can add Mistral, Llama, whatever, and you can also add a chat model. So you can come here, you have a list of providers, you can select whichever provider you would like, you can select the model, and you can add the API keys. Alternatively, you can also edit the config file of the extension, just similar to this way. You add the provider, and you add the API keys. I'm going to revoke these API keys, but this is an example of how I've added O1 Preview. So title O1 Preview, provider OpenAI, model O1 Preview, and this is the API key. So now what I can do, I can ask it just a simple question. Help me write, okay, we must mention the Python snake game, just for, just ticking it off my checklist of the things that I want to ask for or show during the video. And if we're already talking about questions or requests, so I'm also kindly asking you, if you're interested in more AI related stuff and automations, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Now, so this is an example of the chat. As you can see, it's a very clean interface. Alternatively, what you can do, you can add context. So as context, you can add all specific files. So as you can see here, we can select from all the files that are currently open in the workspace. Alternatively, you can add the whole code base. You can add the Git difference. You can add, you can ask it to reference from the terminal what were the recent actions we took in the terminal, and it's supposed to answer based on the content of the terminal. And this is a bit slow because O1 is slower than other models. I'm going to switch to a different model in a moment. But as you can see here, we deleted a file, which is correct. And let me show you other context. So there is problems, which it can fetch from the problems here. So let's say, let me give you an example. Let's say I have a syntax error. It's going to appear here. Let's come here. Let's write. Let's see. I wanted to show the syntax error. Never mind, but you just need to believe me that whenever there is a problem with the syntax and it appears in the problems area in VS Code, it will pick it up and it can adjust based on this. So this is very useful. Furthermore, you have docs. So you can select it has a directory of embedded documentations of all the recent documentation. So for example, if you want to look for, if you have a question regarding the docs of Next.js, you can just add it as context and then ask a specific question. How are the routes structured in this framework? And you can also add specific documentations and have them being embedded. And this is very useful because, as you can see here, there are like the most popular documentations are already embedded, and you can add docs. So this is very powerful. It takes a ton of time because I'm using O1. Let me just switch next. In a moment I will switch, but let's just let it finish. So as you can see here, in Next.js, routes are structured using a file system-based router, folders as route segments, special files for UI rendering, etc., etc. Now, what other context providers we have here? We have a URL. So basically, we can reference a web page at a given URL. So let's add my website. Reference HTTPS EcomXF. Explain about the content of this website. And it's going to gather the context. Basically, it's going to fetch the content of the HTML of my website. And in a moment, it's going to explain what's going on in my website. And I hope that you can already start understanding why this is so powerful. And as you can see, it mentions my name, conversion rate optimization, automations, etc. So these are the context-related abilities that you can add to continue. Beside context, what are other options that you have here? So first of all, it's very convenient. They have this quick start, which allows you to see, kind of gather the features very easily. So Control L, whenever you hit Control L on a certain piece of code, it arrives here. And then you can ask specific things about the code that you selected. And this is why, and this stuff, for example, you cannot do in Cloud Dev. So this is why I said I use Cloud Dev for 90% of the time for the bigger things, but for the minor tweaks, I like using continue. So let's just change the model, perhaps to Llama. I hope my API keys in Grok are up to date. Let's check. Can you explain this model? Yeah, it's very fast, as you can see, because we are using Grok, so it's explaining this model. So this is what Control L does. It basically allows you to copy into the context over here. Alternatively, you can also use Control I. So Control I basically allows us to generate a prompt over here. So we can prompt it however we would like. Take the existing code and replace it with a Python snake game. Obviously, this is the theme for today, guys. What a unique request, it's saying. Here is the rewritten code replacing the original return X statement with a simple Python snake game, as you can see here. And right now we can select whether or not we want to accept or reject. So if we accept it, it's going to update the code. What else do we have here? We can also use the mouse, add highlighted code to context. We can fix this code. So it's going to fix the code on the spot or optimize the code. So let's select the fix this code. As you can see, it fixed the code on the spot, and then we can accept this. let's ask it to write comments. Now, writing comments for this code is very useful because this allows me to understand what's going on. Sometimes if I just ask Claude Dev to generate a ton of things and I'm losing track of what's going on, I just asked continue to add comments to this code. So check this out. It's going to add comments. Basically, most of the code was already commented, but it is adding more comments, as you can see here. And that's pretty much it in terms of the UI. Now, what I also wanted to share with you is also something very cool that they are offering, and this is in the customization area. So we had the context providers, which we can add, and we also have slash commands. And what slash commands allow you is just basically a shortcut, but it's pretty useful. So whenever you get a chunk of code in the context area, you can use these shortcuts slash commands in order to speed up your process, and you can also add your own slash commands. So just as an example, let's say we want to comment this on this piece of code. So we can use this comment, and in the configuration, you can see exactly what does this mean. So in this case, in this instance, it's right here. So write comments for the highlighted code. So we hit the enter button and we are getting comments, which already have like many of these. Alternatively, we have more shortcuts, but we can also create our own shortcuts, and this is exactly what I did over here. So I created a new slash command which is called test, and let's look for a different file that we can generate test for. So this is generate a JavaScript that generates icons. So let's start a new session and we can copy this. So Control L, and now test. So basically it's going to write unit test for the highlighted code. Sorry, I had to add it above. Now Control L. Test. What's going on here? Okay, never mind. Let's do this way. It's going to be error, not related. You know how it goes whenever you show something, it doesn't work. So I did test and then I just copied the code, and as you can see, it was very fast because we're using Rock. So it generated these tests. Let's say the selected code is function that takes a list of numbers. I think it did this incorrectly. Test this. Let's see what was wrong. The reference was incorrect, but I'm not sure why. Write unit test for the highlighted code. So we might need to highlight the code. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if it's going to work now. However, I need to know what code. Please go ahead and find. Okay, never mind. Let's paste the code, and then it generates the code, the testing for this. So this wasn't so flawless, but I guess you get the gist of this. Obviously, we can ask follow-ups. Now we also have an example of problems. So we can ask continue to adjust the problems. So can you suggest fixes? I think there is something off with the context. let's see, context item, no problems found, it depends on the specific file that we need to reference to. So we can combine between two different files. So we can, two different contexts, and then it will fetch the specific problem, and based on this, it will fix the code. As you can see here, you always have the context items that we've used, which is very helpful. What we can try doing is maybe code base problems. I don't know if it will work. Just fixes to the file. Generating context. Okay, there you go. So 6 context items. So these are the files from the code base. And then it is generating the response. Not sure why is it continue. Okay, so let's take this specific file, continue tutorial.py. Okay. Fix this code. Let's just let it fix the code. Statement must be separated by new lines. Never mind. This isn't the point of the video. Let me see. Okay, that's fine. That's better. Okay, expected indented line 14. Fix this code. As you can see, we need to. Never mind, this is not the point of the video. A bit clunky. I don't know, it's probably because I did stuff wrong, but still, this wasn't the point of the video, and I still believe that continue is very powerful. Just that most of the time, as I said, I'm using Cloud Dev, but for many use cases, continue is very useful. Let me think if I covered everything. I think I covered everything. So you can add your own models, you can add different type of context, and you can add your own customized instructions like I showed right here, /commands. It's called /commands. Obviously, I highly encourage you to check out the documentation in order to like dive deeper, understand where you can combine continue and Cloud Dev or whichever AI coding assistance that you're using. Based on my experience, Cloud Dev is still the best solution for creating code bases and making stuff very fast. But again, using continue for code explanation and minor tweaks is very helpful. And the fact that you should combine two models, at least based on this research, is also a big reason why it might make a lot of sense to use two different AI coding assistants, since I'm not aware of any AI coding assistance that allows you to go back and forth. I mean, you can change manually between the models, but I think this way, having two AI coding assistants running in parallel, and also each one of them has a different context window, it can be useful. I guess that's it for today, guys. Again, if you haven't subscribed and you found this video useful, please do subscribe. If you have any suggestions or ideas for improvement, please leave them in the comment section below. And until next time, keep on automating.